Hey guys, Heather and Lauren here with BTS Nutrition. You probably know me. I'm one of the nutrition coaches and one of the founders of BTS, and Lauren is one of our registered dietitians. I have her here today with me because we wanted to go over supplements. We get asked that a lot from our clients, and we get asked, are they necessary? Shouldn't you just eat real food? Which ones are good? What sport should I use them for? And supplements can be a really confusing and messy topic. So we have picked our top supplements and that we've been asked about, and we put together a list of exactly what they are, if they're necessary, and of course people always ask, well, what brand do you recommend? So we'll address that as well. The first thing we want to point out is that you can't out-supplement a poor diet or poor nutrition. So by very nature, supplements are meant to supplement a proper diet and proper nutrition, not replace it. So the best way to get good nutrition is through whole foods. So we'll start there. Second, all supplements are not for all people or all sports. The type of exercise you're doing or the reason you might think you need a supplement matters. For instance, strength training athletes don't need the same supplementation as maybe an Ironman endurance runner athlete, and vice versa. So your goals do matter when you're looking at supplements. So let's go ahead and jump in. And the first one I'm going to take because it's one of the most researched and one of the oldest supplements, so I chose to talk about it. It's an easy one to talk about, but it's creatine. I also use it, so I wanted to talk about it. So your body naturally produces creatine. A lot of people don't know that. They think creatine is like some, steroid you're going to juice yourself up with, but it actually occurs naturally in your body. So it's not really an essential thing you need to supplement. The catch is that for some people and their activity, their body doesn't store a high enough amount for it to be stored in muscle. And what I mean by that is, like, for instance, I weightlift, and I take at least once a week a weightlifting session that's close to 2 hours long, where I just lift straight for 2 hours. And I usually do that in addition to my daily lifting with CrossFit. So it is plausible that my body doesn't make enough creatine for me to recover as fast as I would want to. So I do supplement with a very small amount, and we'll talk about amounts in just a little bit, but I actually take even less than the recommended dose because as Lauren will talk about in a minute, you can take it to the point that it does no good, and then you're just, taking a powder for no reason. So how does creatine work? You have something called ATP in your body, which is basically your body's currency for energy. And creatine is really useful in regenerating ATP faster because it can do that, and is really useful in short, intense forms of exercise, primarily in the lower range rep. So it won't, a lot of people say, well, if I take creatine, I back squat 200 right now. Can I go to 250? No, although that would be awesome. But what is important to realize is that it may get you a couple more reps at 200, and a couple more reps over time adds up to more strength. So it's not something that's gonna just make you an amazing lifter, but it may help you get 1 or 2 more reps over a low, high intensity exercise, and that over time can add up to increased strength. So creatine has not been found to be really beneficial for your average fitness enthusiast or your endurance athlete. For instance, Lauren is not a heavy lifter. She comes in here and works out frequently, but she's not, lifting is not her focus. It is my focus, and so I take creatine in a small amount, about 3 grams, and I don't take it every day. I take it a couple times a week on the days when I know I'm going to have heavy lifting sessions. But it wouldn't be very useful for Lauren or for someone who's going to go run a marathon. You probably don't need creatine to run a marathon. Side effects, creatine has been around since the 1800s, so it's extremely well studied. I mean, obviously it's been around forever because we make it, but as a supplement. And there's over 300, 400 studies since 2017 alone. And basically, there's not a lot of side effects other than if you start taking it, especially in higher dosages, you can have some bloating. And you can, especially women, can see their weight go up. You do not need to do a load phase. A lot of companies and people will tell you you need to load up with double the dose for 5 to 10 days and then cut it down. I don't think you need to do that. Neither does Lauren. And probably the most efficient form that has been researched is creatine monohydrate. So if you're asking, well, what kind should I use? Look for that kind. The brand doesn't matter as much. That we do recommend certain brands. You're welcome to private message us about those. We also have certain brands that we just personally prefer. But in terms of research, there's no like gold standard of creatine other than it being the monohydrate. And the same is with timing. People take it when they prefer to take it. Some people take it in the morning, some people take it at night, some people take it right before they work out, some people take it right after they work out. Research has not shown that there's any higher efficiency of when you take it, so much as how much you take and things like that. So the question of dose is 3 to 5 milligrams is what you would take. I take the lower end of just 3. Also, you shouldn't be consuming creatine for longer than 5 days without then taking a 5-day break. So I don't actually do that because I don't take it every day. But on days where I have my 2-hour Olympic lifting session, or days when I see our CrossFit workout is a big strength portion plus heavy lifting in the WOD, I may take it. So maybe I take it 3 days a week or 4 days a week, if that, and then I don't take it the other days because I don't need it. I don't take it on my rest day. I don't take it on days when I do cardio. So you could also do it that way instead of doing the 5 on 5 off. So anything else to add?
Nope,
About creatine?
That covers it.
Yes, I did good. All right, so then we're going to move on to a newer one. It kind of comes out of the ketogenic diet, ketones. So about a couple years ago, they started making a ketone salt, basically, that you can add to beverages. And it's supposed to give you the benefit of, which that's arguable, but we're going to do another video on the ketogenic diet later, so we won't get into that. But it supposedly gives you the benefit of using the ketosis fuel as well as using what you normally use as fuel, glucose. So there's hardly any research out on this yet. It's like 3 years old. There's maybe like a handful of studies. It's still in a really remedial stage of being researched. But what people are saying is that while your brain prefers to use glucose as its fuel, if you enter into starvation and you do this ketogenic diet where you're really high fat, really low carb, then you turn off the ability to use glucose as your fuel and you start to use ketones as your fuel. Which, side note, even though we're going to talk about it later, that has some really bad side effects such as constipation, dehydration, elevated cholesterol, kidney stones, you get really tired, osteoporosis. And our registered dietitian here does not recommend doing the keto diet, just FYI. So we're going to do another video about that later. Feel free to message us if you have questions in the meantime. But the point of these keto salts are that they're supposed to allow you to use the benefits of ketones without having to do this diet. We don't recommend them right now because there's hardly any research out there to support if they work or not. So you could just be buying an expensive salt for your beverage. All right, so caffeine is the most widely used drug in the world. Studies have shown that caffeine can positively affect your performance as an athlete, especially in endurance events, events over an hour, or high-intensity, short-duration events like Orange Theory, high-intensity exercise, CrossFit. The most effective dose has been found to be 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. These supplements are all by kilogram of body weight, which means you would take your weight and divide it by 2.2.
Yes.
And then times it by the 3 to 6 milligrams. So that's how you get your dosage. That's actually a crap ton of caffeine if you're like a larger person like me. I do drink caffeine before I work out, but not that much. Because the one time I did, and I usually do caffeine about an hour to an hour and a half before I work out, because I have experimented with it, and when I take it closer to time, or if I drink it during my workouts, I get really like shaky and like my heart rate goes up and then it doesn't come back down and I'm like, ah. So it affects everybody differently. So just be aware if you're going to experiment with caffeine to find what works for you. Don't just down like 200 milligrams of caffeine and then run into the gym. Coach Jana has done that in a competition before. She can tell you, didn't go well. Didn't go well. So anything to add about caffeine?
Just with pregnancy, caffeine should be limited, so consult your doctor or dietitian about that.
True story. And nursing, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right, and then I've got one more, and then I'll turn over to Lauren for a few. Fish oil. This is a good fat that most of us are low on. We get a lot of omega-9s, right, in our diet, and not the 3s.
Not as many 3s or 6s.
Yes, and the 3s and 6s are the good ones that keep our inflammation down. 9s actually raise our inflammation. And so the recommended dosage for fish oil, and we actually do recommend fish oil for all athletes to take, but is 1 to 2 grams of EPA plus DHA, and you want to make sure that there is a higher concentration of EPA versus the DHA.
Yes.
And people used to eat fish once or twice a week, and you would actually get the same benefits. But the problem is, unless you're going to buy the wild Alaskan salmon now, a lot of the farm-raised fish, the concentrations of omega-3s are now really low. So you don't get the same benefits as you used to. But we do recommend taking omega-3 for recovery, inflammation, and a bunch of other benefits. I try to remember to take it every day, but I need one of those pill organizers because I always forget to take my omega-3 until right before bed. You are supposed to take it with meal.
Yes. And I also take fish oils, and you should take them not all at once in the day, but spread it out, maybe morning and night. So
Good thought.
Maximize the effectiveness.
Yes. And if you're logging your macros, they count as fat. Not a lot of fat, but you should log them.
And the pills are just as good as the straight oil, so it's a terrible taste, so I would opt for the pills.
Yeah, well, that's true. The oil is gross. All right, so Lauren is going to take over for a little bit and tell you a little bit about vitamin D.
Okay, so there's a lot of misinformation about vitamin D, but what most of us know is that we get it from sunlight. But we also get it from food. So as we've learned, we need to protect ourselves from the sun, and in doing so, wearing more sunscreen. That blocks the absorption in our skin of vitamin D, so we need to look more towards food sources. So that would be, animal products, fortified eggs, milk, liver, butter, margarine.
Liver.
Yeah, we don't really eat liver anymore, but it is a good source. So because of that, we don't focus necessarily on the food sources because we were so used to sun. There has been an increase in deficiencies. So right now, as far as supplementing it for athletes, there's no evidence to suggest that higher levels of vitamin D intake aid athletic performance, but what it can do is prevent injuries, mainly to our bones. So as we age, especially, our ability to synthesize or basically convert vitamin D to an active form where it goes into our bones and creates strong bones with calcium and phosphorus, our ability to do that decreases. So we tend to need more as we age. For women, that usually starts, unfortunately, around menopause. So because vitamin D is stored in our liver, which is why it makes liver one of the good sources of it, it is potentially toxic. So there's not one amount that each person should supplement. That's really something you want to go to your doctor and get tested for to see if you even need supplementation for it or if you're deficient at all, because it can cause vomiting, diarrhea, kidney damage, and some side effects that you really don't want. So my suggestion would be if you are concerned that you don't spend enough time outside or are not eating animal products, or are you a woman of menopausal age or an older gentleman, that's when I would consult your doctor to see what your levels are before you do any kind of supplementation.
And side note, the noises in the background, we're at CrossFit Douala, where we both work and work out, and the competition team, like the games athletes, are maxing their snatches and clean and jerks right now, so a lot of heavy barbells dropping in the background. Just imagine them being knowledge bombs being dropped on you. All right, so collagen is another one we get asked about.
Yes, so that's been a real huge hot topic. As we know, collagen, it's in our joints, it helps with the inflammation, bones feeling good. So there's a huge misconception that taking in collagen will then directly go and support the collagen in our bodies. That's unfortunately not how it works. The same way as we try and tell y'all eating fat doesn't make you fat. It's just not exactly how it works with our bodies. But it is a protein that's part of our bone and other tissues in humans and in animals. And we can find it in animals in bone broth, although bone broth doesn't actually have as much collagen as we'd like to think in other supplements. So when they're broken down, they're more easily absorbed protein fragments. That's all it is. It's bits of protein. So you'll see a lot of like paleo advocates promoting it and saying that it decreases joint pain associated with arthritis or surgery and improves overall bone and joint health. But the research out there and the clinical studies say that that effect is pretty limited. So it's basically one of those things where it's not negative. If you want to supplement with collagen, there's just not a lot of evidence to say that it's beneficial. But if it's something you want to do, you feel like it works for you, that's great. It should be taken, like the collagen type to look for is type 2, and it should be taken orally for a dose of about 2.5 milligrams per day for no more than 24 weeks at a time. So it does need to be cycled as well.
All right. And then multivitamins, we have a pretty short thing on that. Most Americans don't meet all their daily vitamin and mineral requirements through food, so they could improve their health by taking a multivitamin. As in terms of what to look for, that depends on age and also activity levels. So that's something that you would want to talk to a nutritionist, a doctor, or a dietitian about, because it's really hard to just give a blanket multivitamin for the entire population. So probiotics next.
So you've probably heard of probiotics and you've probably heard of prebiotics, but you don't know exactly what they are. So probiotics are live microorganisms that produce some health benefits when digested, and this is in your gut. So they're normally found in your intestinal tract.
Shut the door.
So basically, why might they be beneficial and why would you want to supplement them? So I do take a probiotic. It helps stimulate your immune system.
You do?
Yes. It prevents growth of certain diseases and certain negative bacteria in your gut tract. It helps synthesize certain vitamins that you might be supplementing or be lacking in your diet. It controls your inflammation levels. So some possible beneficial effects would be reduces your gut transit time, makes your digestive system more regular. It reduces the severity if you ever take antibiotics. I highly suggest starting a probiotic because any of you women know you can get an infection from antibiotics from overgrowth of bad bacteria. It can help with the severity of different food intolerances, help with complications of certain GI disorders, such as inflammatory bowel disease or irritable bowel disease. So my suggestion as far as probiotics and what to look for, it's not that no one brand is better than others, but I would definitely look for one where the microorganisms need to be refrigerated. And also with that, if you have one you like, that's great, but because each of these different brands contain different microflora, different microorganisms, you can saturate your gut with just the one kind. So it's good to have a favorite brand, that's great, I do too, but I use that one bottle, and then once I've used up that one bottle, I get a different brand, so I get different microorganisms and use that bottle, and then I'll go back to my original one. So it's good to cycle them out.
Oh, good tip, like that. All right, our last two, amino acids or BCAAs and whey protein. So amino acids are different than BCAAs in that amino acids, as you guys know, hopefully from watching the protein video, are the building blocks of protein. BCAAs are just 3 specific amino acids.
Yes.
But in general, they claim to do the same thing in terms of like workout and workout recovery, which Lauren drew a really cool picture here that we're going to try to spell out for you. See, cute little picture. But basically, when you work out, when you lift weights, you have muscle breakdown, as you guys know. And your body needs more glycogen to restore that. Watch our carb video. And there's 3 pathways going into the brain when this happens. And you've got your, I'm going to say it wrong,
Tryptophan.
Tryptophan, which is an amino acid that makes you tired. Yeah, it's in Turkey, that's why.
Yeah, so if you ever see, like on Thanksgiving Day, they joke about being really tired. It's from the tryptophan in the turkey.
It's a real thing. Yeah. So imagine one of those channels going in, and then BCAAs going in the other 2 routes to your brain. When you work out, then you kind of lower the amount of BCAAs as you're trying to recover, and that allows more tryptophan to sneak in, which can increase fatigue and make you more tired and run down. So the thought behind taking a BCAA or an amino acid is to prevent that from happening so that you keep 2 channels going into the brain of energy and BCAAs and just 1 of the tryptophan. However, studies are really up in the air as to whether this is actually happening or not, but it's something that we say doesn't hurt. So taking 5 to 20 grams of BCAAs per day in divided dose are fine. They just haven't, like, there's no study that just proves that this is going to increase your performance. So it's kind of like what she was saying about the collagen. If you feel good, if it's working for you, as long as you're taking it in the correct dosages safely, then we think it's fine. But it's also not one you have to take.
Right. So there is some thought, like that we said, that supplementing it can help reduce exercise induced muscle damage or fatigue. It's not something you take to bulk up or increase your muscle mass. It just helps with recovery. If you want to take it, it would be between 5 to 20 grams of supplementing it per day in individual doses. So if you take up to 20 grams, you want to divide that over the 4 times a day. And you can decide yourself if you want it before your workout, after your workout, various times throughout the day. But again, it's for muscle recovery. So you don't want to take it on days that you're not working out. Because this is a theory, one of the better ways or an additional way to help change that pathway into the brain and promote the BCAAs that are naturally occurring in your body to go into the pathway we want in the brain is to promote the glycogen stores in your liver during your workout. So again, refer to our carbohydrate video on how to do that and how to maintain your carbohydrate stores during workout so it maintains the natural levels of BCAA in your brain to promote muscle recovery.
Which is a perfect lead into our last one, whey protein. Super researched. Pretty much everybody knows about this, but we're going to cover it just in case. We do recommend whey protein after workouts. However, what a lot of people don't realize is it needs to be taken with a fast digesting carb. I hear a lot of people make fun of or knock people who eat like sweets while they work out. So let me give you an example. An Olympic weightlifter lifting for 3 straight hours. Their glycogen stores are gone after like the first hour. So they need a fast acting carb to continue to be able to perform at a higher level while lifting. So a lot of times you'll see people eating Sour Patch Kids or gummy worms, Hawaiian rolls, bananas if they're being really healthy, although that upsets a lot of people's stomachs. Things like that. And you'll hear people say, we shouldn't do that. Eat a sweet potato. The problem with that is sweet potato is a great carb for workouts 3 hours before you work out. If you eat a sweet potato in the middle of a weightlifting session, you'll feel it at 6 o'clock at night or 3 hours later. It's going to do nothing for you during that lifting session. So when we say that you need to pair your whey protein with a fast digesting carb, we mean like sugar. So dextrose, bananas.
Yeah. My favorite is trehalose. Basically, you want to, fruit and things like that are great, but you want to limit the amount of fiber at that time because it slows down the digestion. You want it to get into your system as quickly as possible.
Yes. So if somebody makes fun of you for eating Hawaiian rolls or Sour Patch Kids, you know, you can tell them that like a registered dietitian told you to do that.
Yes.
In that scenario. So if you drink whey protein 15 to 20 minutes after a workout, we highly recommend that as long as you have, usually the ratio is 4 to 1. So for me, I do a scoop of protein and then 3 to 4 tablespoons, depending on the intensity of my workout that day, of the dextrose, or I use dextrose because I'd have to eat like 3 bananas to get that much carbs and it would make my stomach hurt. So also in older people, there's something called sarcopenia. And that is when the body's ability to continue to build up and absorb what they need to build lean muscle kind of falters. So we do recommend, and this is something you'd want to talk to a coach or a dietitian or your doctor about, but people over the age of 50 to 55 do need more protein for the same benefits that someone younger than them gets with less protein. So that's something to think about too, but we definitely recommend whey protein post-workout. And again, just remember, if you take it by itself, it's not really as effective as if you pair it with a fast-acting carb. So, all right, that pretty much wraps up our our supplement video. Sorry it was so long, but we hope we gave you a lot of good information and that you can make some educated choices now when picking supplements for working out. So, thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.